This year's Bill Russell Finals MVP goes to Nikola Jokic.
The last 5 MVPs have been won by international players.
The game of basketball, the NBA, belongs to the international players.
Right now, for the first time in the history of basketball, the best players are not born in the United States.
In 2023, I think it's safe to say that the NBA is turning a corner into a new generation of basketball. Blake Griffin's no longer jumping over cars, the Warriors are no longer a cheat code, and LeBron is no longer the best player in the NBA. A lot has changed with the stars and storylines of the 2010s seeming to finally simmer away. James Harden is still in the strip club though. It seems like the never-ending talk of the passing of the torch has actually happened at this point, and likely in a way different fashion than we could have expected. The current state of the league is loaded with international talent, and you can say none of the top 4 players in the world right now share American blood. In a sport that has been historically dominated by the US of A, there's something going on that has allowed other nations to push out talent better than the system thought to be miles ahead of any in the world. But what is it that has caused this dramatic power shift? Subscribe if you're in my 96% unsubscribed audience. The USA has had a chokehold on the league since the commencement of the league, and T-Rexes were running around the court. The advantage that the US has had stems from 3 main factors that I would appoint. The population of the country ranking 3rd in the world, the popularity of the sport being massively ahead of other large countries, as well as the sport's infrastructure in the US being just as good as any other country in the world. These 3 main factors basically illustrate the cycle of talent. There's kids who want to play, they can get involved through schools, cities, rec groups, or whatever, and throughout time the path has become rather solidified with minor changes taking place in recent years. You dominate your local schools, garner some college attention, light it up over there, boom bang boom, you found yourself in the NBA. And over time this has shifted, starting in the 1980s, with the popularity of AAU basketball for youth players taking a massive leap. The matching of top talent around the country has been a hot commodity since then, and for good reason. AAU is a great time to develop new or less developed skills, as well as just being a very fun event for everyone involved. Since then, the AAU scene has transformed with huge value to players and coaches as a way to find college talent at all levels of youth basketball, with AAU largely serving as a tool to get into college, and high school teams largely serving as where you prepare for college basketball. Pumping out collegiate players has been pretty cut and dry for quite some time now. After this filtering process, the story is usually pretty similar at the top. Up to this point, there's been pretty little reason to question this process. I mean, up until 2018, there had been only 1 European MVP in league history. But since James Harden took his home when everyone was playing Fortnite all day in 2018, the NBA hasn't seen an American MVP. The subtle changes in the development process have certainly taken their toll on the way that kids are coming up today, starting with the Amateur Athletic Union. Started as a non-profit development league for kids from coast to coast, the current status of the league is simple. AAU is a talent showcase set in place to maximize the profits of event organizers, administrators, and coaches. The pay-to-play business model, mixed with the play-to-earn sponsorships and sell-out venues to further pay said business people, has turned this into one hell of a lucrative business model. AAU basketball is largely exploitative in the way that it uses kids to increase bottom lines. Playing 4 to 5 full-intensity games a day is clearly not healthy for kids. Overuse injuries are some of the most common in the sport. With only a few years to earn your scholarship, you better get your ass on the court. Like I said before, AAU is a talent showcase. The way I see it is basically the same way that your old-headed uncle views the current NBA. With basically no practices and no incentives to win games and little to no structure, AAU is currently dominated by the most athletically gifted players utilizing their natural ability to dominate every game. Numerous players and medical professionals have criticized the league's structure for what it is. An over-commercialized industry that leads to pretty alarming issues in the future. When you're competing for very limited spots as a kid, it's a necessary evil. The late great Kobe Bryant himself was a very vocal advocate against the impact that the league had on kids, stemming from the lack of groundwork to build off of, with 35-foot bombs off of step-backs being far more attractive than working on moving without the ball and finishing with both hands. What you see on Instagram is likely what you're striving for, and this brand of basketball is AAU in a nutshell. The influence of social media on the basketball scene has been remarkable as someone who was playing throughout the entire revolution. The impact that social media can have on a player's career is monstrous. Is Thon Maker going 10th overall out of high school if he's not a mixtape legend? No, he's not. Getting clicks on the internet leads to attention, and attention leads to opportunity. LaMelo's half-court shot changed his life. Zion's posters made him the most hyped pick since LeBron, and Julian Newman's highlights turned a would-be below-average college player into a multi-millionaire. The publicity of players making low percentage shots, low IQ plays, or just a completely unattainable play style has caused kids to shoot for the wrong goals. LaMelo can pull bad shots sometimes because he just happens to be a 6'6" combo guard with elite shot creation, ball handling, and playmaking skills. And you're not going to take Zion's bounce unless you're part of the Monstars. The flash and pizzazz of an unattainable game has translated into a generation of kids who want to be the isolation-heavy shot creators that they see online. The lack of a foundation to build upon, mixed with playing bad fundamental basketball, has created a world where only the most talented survive. Except when you look up and see that the league is currently being ran by two overweight white dudes with like 6-inch verticals. The basketball climate overseas sees an entirely different formula to what we see in America. Playing in Europe, you can expect to find yourself on one sports club the entire year. This is your team, your coach, and your program. This is incredibly structured. You have your role and develop at your own pace, and when you're ready to move on to the next level, you will. Each summer, the top of the top in each group will play for their country's national team. If invited, this is likely the only time that you'll leave your team before you advance to the next club. This is the best of the best, but far different from EYBL AAU teams. This is very structured, and representing your country is regarded as one of the highest honors you could receive. With a focus on continual development and always challenging the player, Europe sets a focus on building a player to be the best individual talent that they can be. The skill regardless of size approach has pumped out some of the most unique talents to ever touch a ball. This not only creates a more well-rounded player, but allows for players to not get boxed into one position and one role. And with the constant jump from team to team depending on the pace of your development, this also doesn't allow for reliance on one skill or talent to dominate everyone always. You're essentially forced to play the right way or you're just not going to make it. It's safe to say that European players have it a little harder. As a college-age player, you're playing against the most elite players in the continent at any age, and this is pretty widely accepted. I mean, minutes aren't given out to young guys for multiple reasons, and the NBA scouts these guys on talent alone. I mean, why do you think Mario Hezonja went 5th overall, scoring like 5 points a game? In this league, games are more meaningful with the shorter seasons spread out over a long period of time. There's no time just to throw your young guys out there. This league's not built for an 18-year-old to come in and dominate, and basically every European player in the league shares the opinion that being thrown into the fire in the EuroLeagues is a whole lot harder than across the pond. There are a few key differences with the EuroLeague game that makes it a tougher shift. Firstly, dealing with the court dimensions. At 3 feet shorter and a 1.5 feet thinner with a 3-point line a half meter in, the compact court kills spacing. I mean, everyone's all scrunched up. This allows for quicker switches and recoveries while making it easier to exploit a guy's weakness. I mean, Emmanuel Mudiay came in there, shit the bed, and left after 5 games when they realized he couldn't shoot at all. The court size, mixed with the more defense-friendly rule calling, certainly makes it a much tougher time for an offensive player. With hand-checking being a staple of European play, as well as tic-tac contact not really being called to the extent it is, the game is much more physical, and being tossed in with grown men forces you to grow the hell up. This mixed with defensive 3-second violations not being called makes scoring altogether a much harder thing to do. With no one scoring over 18 points a game, it again forces you to play the right way. Excelling at the EuroLeague level has proven to be a more impressive feat than most people want to give it credit for. This isn't just a knockoff NBA. It's no surprise that Luka came in and dominated in the pick and roll, when there isn't a guy camping in the paint taking away his roll man while he jogs untouched to the basket. It's no surprise that given a wider time frame to do it and a more athletic rim runner, Nikola Jokic is making passes out of the post more efficiently than he ever has. They may be playing in a whole new ballpark talent-wise, but from a fundamental standpoint, they learned how to ride the bike and then they put training wheels on it. Do I think that the United States basketball program is crumbling to the ground? No, I don't. The United States is still pumping out the best athletes in the most efficient manner. But these holes in the system are allowing for competitors to compete at a better rate than ever have before. It's hard to predict what's going to happen in the long run, as this certainly is a macro level situation. But with Europe continuing to pump out top prospects, we might just see these guys take over the league even more. especially when their competition is some kid who spent his childhood making TikToks and perfecting his jelly layup.